Good afternoon. Okay, I know it's after lunch, and I promise not to bore you too bad. But today, first let me offer this disclaimer. I really want this presentation to be engaging. I want us to talk back to each other, because I know that we've probably been to a lot of conferences, and we really don't like people talking at us after lunch. So we want to be able to engage in conversation. So some of you are drinking water, you're drinking coffee, hopefully nothing else. And so we're able to just kind of consider this to be a conversation starter to really look at a very important issue. COVID has taught us that we were not really prepared for running into virtual learning. I think all of us who are educators at any level, in addition to being a fellow at the Institute for School Governance and Accountability, I teach at Cornell University remotely. And so I say to all of our fellow educators that the last year and a half have really tested us in the profession. And the reason being is because we have been forced to take what we thought was a norm in education, classroom-based instruction, and now take it into the homes, the iPads, the laptops, and even in the case of my 12th grade son, the cell phone, to master learning. And so looking at web-based technologies and looking at all of the stuff that's out there, it's important to accurately look at educational digital equity. And so that's what I want to spend a little bit of time about today, talking with you about. If you can bring up the presentation for me. Okay. So digital educational equity. Does anybody want to take a stab at what that is? Yes, sir.
I would assume ensuring that all students have access to the digital needs that they require to be successful.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. That's spot on. If I had like a happy face sticker or some extra credit, I got you. Okay? But he's absolutely correct. Ensuring that everybody has access to the resources that they need. Okay? Next slide, please. We're all familiar with the term digital divide. Okay? We've heard that some time now, some years ago. And so digital divide can be summed up as the gulf between those who have ready access to computers and the internet, and simply said, those who do not. Now, put yourself in the mindset of where most of us who are in education must have been in March of last year. The pandemic was new. All we knew was that we had a quarantine order, and we now had to find a way to continue our educational pursuits for our students from March until the end of the school year. We learned some valuable lessons during that time. We learned that Microsoft Teams might not be the best for learning. We also learned that people could Zoom bomb sessions. And being transparent and 100% honest with you, I learned the hard way that someone could break into my Zoom class. And so we learned a lot. But the prevailing thing that was there was a problem that had been a problem before was now exacerbated, because now people who were suffering from the digital divide previously were continuously or in a greater scale suffering from this educational reform, for lack of a better term. Next slide. The Consortium for School Networking offered these three things when looking at digital equity. And so this is how I'm going to frame our discussion today. Digital foundations, learning conditions, and meaningful learning opportunities. Digital foundations, learning conditions, and meaningful learning opportunities. Next slide, please. So let's look at digital foundations, ensuring that students have access to connectivity and devices. Now, I live in Miami, Florida, and as much as I would like to think that we were ready and we were apt to the task, I learned the hard way we didn't. I have a senior in high school. Well, he was a junior last year, but now he's a senior in high school, and I have a kindergartner. So this past year, I feel like I need to split half of my kindergarten son's teacher's salary with her because I was a kindergarten teacher with her on Zoom. Not fun. I knew it was a reason why in all of my educational career, I never desired to be an elementary school teacher because they earn their money. So, but picture this, a 6-year-old having to learn ABCs and numbers on a Zoom screen. Put yourself in that mindset of understanding what that must have looked like. And then I think that we have done a bad job as a society. We highlighted the problems as it related to the students, but we didn't look at the problems and the mental health issues sometimes of the teachers. So it really was a crucial time. We saw many cases of where students were throwing the computers on the floor. Teachers were having meltdowns. At one school in Dade County that I won't call the name, I know for a fact the teacher had a serious meltdown and the Zoom room had to be closed. It was real, okay? So digital foundations, and I like the illustration that I used here because all of us have these technologies. I mean, if you're like me, I'm an Apple guy. I've got Apple everything. If they had an Apple house, I would buy it, okay? But all of us had the technology, but when the time came, we realized that all of us didn't have the technology. Recent data shows that 16.9 million children aged 17 years or younger lack high-speed home internet. That's a lot of kids. Put that in perspective. 16.9 million. And 3.6 million households are without a computer. Think about that. That seems foreign to us, that in 2021, at this conference, we would still be talking about the fact that 3.6 million households don't have a computer at home. I'm going to ask a question just for fun's sake. How many people have a computer at home? Okay. How many people have multiple computers at home? Okay. How many people have an iPad? How many people have, well, I call Android stuff that other stuff. So how many people have that other stuff's tablet, whatever the Android tablet is, okay? We're fortunate. Our children or grandchildren are fortunate, but 3.6 million households in 2021 do not. Now, one of the major, and during the time of the internet of the pandemic, we saw a rise of corporate social responsibility because we saw some companies were able to afford our low income or students who did not have it, internet access. Xfinity was one. But still, it's no good to have internet if you have no computer. It's like having a cool drink and having a lot of ice and lemonade and no glass, okay? Some districts and some private schools and charter schools were able to, provide laptop resources, but then some of those laptops were antiquated and they were not able to utilize some of the modern technology. Next slide, please. Learning conditions, how students interact and engage with technology. Now, I will be the first to admit this, that I had a bias. And my bias was that all the young people knew how to work technology because of what they spent 95% of their day on, their cell phones. But research has shown us that that was not necessarily the case. And it's one thing to go on Instagram, it's one thing to go on Facebook, it's another thing to have difficulty getting into a Zoom room or trying to navigate into Microsoft Teams. And the question then became, how is this equitable? Next slide, please. Well, go back to that one for a moment. Look at this young person's reaction. How many of us, in light of the pandemic, have had to go to Zoom meetings and we've had to go to Teams and go to a virtual environment? And how many of us, at one point or another, have felt his pain? Be honest. I'll be honest, and I hope that no one that I've ever had to go into a Zoom meeting is listening to this, but I'll be honest, at some point, I just stopped going. And not only did I stop going, sometimes when I would go and it just got overwhelmed, I would just log off and say I had technical difficulties. Don't judge me. I feel judgment in your eyes. I feel judgment in all of your eyes. That was a moment of, hi, my name is Santarvis, and this is Zoom Anonymous. Hi, my name is Santarvis, and I have a Zoom problem. Okay? But all of us have been there. Now, imagine us being there as adults. Imagine what the children are facing. One thing that I have seen that's been a plus about this time is we've seen a rise of mental health concern for young people and social interaction. You know, my little one who's in kindergarten, he would be crazy with running. So one day I realized that after school was over, the moment we closed out that Zoom room, I took him around the neighborhood, took him to the park, and let him have an hour-and-a-half PE class. That helped him and me, because when we got back home, he was sleeping and I was able to do my work. But the reality is, this has really taught us a lot. And the question is, that I want you to ponder in your mind for a moment, how do we get past this? Because as much technological advancements as we continue to make, as much insight as we continue to have, we're still back at this problem of educational digital equity. Next slide. Any questions or comments before? I wanted this to be engaging. So someone say something so I feel that I'm not alone. Okay, well, thank you. I should have been more specific. Someone say something about the presentation, but thank you. I'm not alone. Okay, that was a good save. Okay. All right, and then looking at meaningful, you were going to say something? Yes, sir. Right. That's a real problem. And I think that I don't know the answer. And I don't think as a society we factored in enough to know the answer either. I think that it's something we're going to have to look at. And this is probably going to be, even though a lot of schools are going back to in-person learning this year, I think we're going to have to face that very same issue that there's some cognitive difficulties now. And there are going to be some cognitive deficiencies because I know me, for one, my attention span is really bad now. I mean, one minute I'm grading papers, the other minute I'm looking at stuff on eBay. Again, don't judge me. I feel judgment in your eyes. But it's very real. And I think that we're going to have to take that into consideration moving forward in the way we teach now. You know, we're gonna have to really look at that the way we teach. I mean, one teacher I saw a good example. It was an article or something somewhere on the internet. Again, while I was supposed to be doing one thing, I was surfing the internet. But the teacher had a problem with the kids using their cell phones in the Zoom class. So while they're supposed to be paying attention to her online, they're looking at stuff on Zoom. I mean, they're looking at stuff on their phones. So she used one of those softwares. It's called Kahoot. Has everybody heard of Kahoot before? It's a really good software where you can create like little trivia things and little questions. And her attendance went up. Their participation went up. And it was all about engaging them at their level. And I thought about that and I said, wow, that's really creative. That showed her being in tune with what was going on in her classroom. She saw, like, she got tired of telling people, put your phones away. And then now she's like, pull out your phones. I guarantee you, when they go back to class, I would love to do research on that. When they go back to class, I'd love to see what her attendance and her participation rate's going to be during the year. It'll probably be high. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
So I've been teaching virtual, I'm a science teacher in Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And I've been a virtual teacher this whole year. So I played a lot of Kahoot with my students.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
Like, miss, we want to play Kahoot. All right, come on in. And we teach science, and it was really fun.
My hat's off to you. Give her a hand. A science teacher teaching virtually, my hat's off to you. Any teacher, but a science teacher, I think the most difficult subjects to teach online are math and science. So my hat's off to you. But it is, again, about reaching the students where they are and helping them to see some sense of normalcy in a very unusual situation. We can go back to the slide, please. Meaningful learning opportunities. Ensuring that students are receiving the same quality, if not better, than in the traditional classroom. And in your case, I would say you've done that. Because in the classroom, you might not have an option, or you may not even feel you have the time to engage Kahoot. Because the learning blocks and the scheduling can be very difficult sometimes, as far as being for purposes of engagement and innovation. So you've made the best out of a bad situation. We're forced to do this remote thing. You're still using your cell phones. Pull them out. We gonna learn. And they love it. And so digital equity not only looks at the resources, not only looks at making sure everybody has the know-how, but making sure that the learning experience is that of equal or greater than they would have received in the classroom. Anyone else taught virtually this year? I'd love to hear someone else's perspective. Anyone else? Classroom teacher? Yes? No? Yes? No? Yes? She just doesn't want to answer. Okay. Well, I recommend you don't sit next to him in the next session. He's going to put you he's going to put you out there. But I'm going to come back to you if it's okay. If not, I'll leave you alone. Yes, sir. What did you teach? Yeah, and especially teaching adults. It's difficult teaching adults, says a college professor. It's difficult teaching adults because adults, we come in with a bias. We respect you, we respect you who you are, but we come in with a bias. Like, who is this person getting up here talking about, telling me anything? Especially in a case like that, a certification course, where you may have individuals who have more experience pre-certification, and now you're coming in telling them, listen, you need to learn this to get certified. I've been doing this before you were even born. I mean, I've gotten that before. And they probably were right. And being a witty person, I would say, so now is the time for you to start doing it right. But either way. So I think that's great. Because what this after COVID learning is going to look like at all levels is we're going to have to be engaging, we're going to have to be innovative, and we're going to literally, for lack of a better term, have to put on a very good dog and pony show to keep them engaged. So you're on the mental. Well, first, do you mind speaking? Because I don't want to put you out there. He kind of did already. Okay. So tell me about your teaching experience virtually. Fourth grade math. Oh, give her a hand, please. Fourth grade math. Okay. All right. So how did you engage? Peer deck. Yes. Okay. 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 Awesome. Again, she uses Peer Deck, she uses Kahoot. Other people have used just like a round robin mechanism of quizzes. It works. Yes, ma'am.
I teach 7th and 8th grade ELA.
Okay. All right. Give her a hand. 7th and 8th grade ELA. All right.
So middle school, they tend to be lucky and private. So Among Us was a big thing. So Game Kid, Look It, they did, I guess, games that mirrored a lot of the things that they do on apps. So we did a lot of gamifying this year. We did a lot of our reviews through those gamifying techniques, and we made sure that they were engaged because of their cell phones that they sometimes.
Great. Awesome. Again, engagement. We learned the hard way this year. Engagement was key because, as we're going to find when we get them back into the traditional learning model or the classroom learning model, that some students who were not actively engaged, there was a lot of regression that occurred. Next slide, please. What we learned. Bridging the digital divide is a problem that requires solutions for accessibility, okay? Affordability and digital skills that touch social, economics, infrastructure, and technology. Now, I want to say this now, actually. I want to challenge everybody in here at whatever place of work you are in the educational space. We now have to become advocates to bridge the digital gap. Whatever that looks like in your local context. If it's a classroom teacher, it might be writing your commissioner, writing your congressman, writing your mayor, writing your governor, whoever. But lobbying now and becoming advocates of change to be able to help bridge that divide, because I think now there's going to be a greater level of appreciation for the work. I pastor a church also in Miami Gardens, and one day I was driving to the church to go to a meeting, and I saw a car with a dad and 2 boys parked in our parking lot. Can anybody guess what they were doing? Stealing the Wi-Fi. Well, borrowing with never an intent to give back, but stealing the Wi-Fi. And so, me being the jovial person I am, I walked up to the car. I said, I'm going to call the police. And he's like, why? I said, because you're stealing our Wi-Fi. And that's a federal crime. And he's like, is it? I said, I don't know, but you're more than welcome to come inside and use it. Because those were the type of sacrifices that people were making. He was in the front trying to work, and they were in the back trying to learn. And so this has taught us that we now have to advocate, because no parent should have to do that. I've heard of college students who've gone to parking lots of Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks to be able to get a sufficient enough Wi-Fi connection to do their work. And so now I challenge all of you that it is our work from this day forward to make sure that we don't ever have to get back to that place again, where we have families borrowing Wi-Fi in parking lots, or college students having to go. But it also showed people's commitment to learning. And it showed their dedication to want to learn. Because I'm sorry, a lot of kids just would have said, oh, you know what, it doesn't work. But this father said, no, we gonna do this together. And he went. And I opened the door for them. And they used it for a couple of days. Because at the end of the day, all the whatever that I ever get to be, I'm a teacher at heart. So that was an opportunity for someone to learn. Can we go back to the slide for a moment? The transition to work from home, learn from home, and telehealth forced by the COVID pandemic highlighted the digital divide in underserved and rural and urban areas. Now, how do you all feel about telehealth? You like telehealth? Okay. Moment of disclosure, and this is just my personal opinion. I really didn't like telehealth too much. And I think for me, the reason why I didn't like telehealth is because even though it was a virtual visit, they still expected the same amount of money. So it's like you talk to me for 5 minutes on Zoom, or in my doctor's case, he likes to FaceTime. So I'm like, wait a minute, you gonna charge me the same amount of money and you FaceTiming me? Okay, you don't want to hear that. All right. So we learned by all of that. Think about that for a moment. Not only did people have to work from home, not only did people have to learn from home, but telehealth from home now. The digital divide is not just an access issue. And I think in past years, we've always thought that that's what it was, simply an access issue and nothing else. The pandemic exposed the issues of affordability, the quality of coverage, and technical skills needed to get children online. It's one thing to it's one thing to have internet connection. It's a better thing to have a good internet connection. Like, since I've been here at the hotel, I can't connect to the Wi-Fi for whatever reason on my cell phone. It's probably the phone, but either way. I can't connect to the Wi-Fi, but the hotel has Wi-Fi, but I can't connect to it. So in essence, is it really doing me any good to have it? No. Next slide, please. Any thoughts on this? We'll go back to the previous slide for me. Any thoughts on this before we go on? Yes, sir.
So with the advent of some of the larger cities turning to smart city technology, where they're making this available, do you see that that's going to have an impact on the digital divide, or do you think it can maybe even exacerbate it even more? Because I think, because of the last case that you just spoke about.
I think that it can go either way. So what he was asking is, with some of the cities making the drive and the push now to go into smart cities and kind of become they're investing in technology infrastructure to kind of boost it up. It's good for the technology, but I think then there needs to be some consideration given to the devices that will be used on that said technology. Because like in some cases, students receiving laptops or tablets, but they're antiquated and they can't connect, or they're not supported with the new technology, that's still problematic. So I think it could go either way. I think it's a step in the right direction first, let me say that. But I think that it could probably go either way.
So the mindset will have to change with that. You just can't take 200 old iPad probably too, that were using your business and then give it to them.
Right.
That you need to give them the same new materials that are being used by other people that are using newer technology.
Right. And I think that's where we have to become advocates now of change. We have to become advocates of change, and we have to become advocates of the digital divide and educate people to say, we thank you for your donation. We really appreciate it, but due to the system now that we're using, the same way the material was outdated for your business, it's going to be outdated for the children. But thank you. And that's not being ungrateful. That you're doing that. You're actually, by taking it, you're doing a disservice, because by taking it and giving it to them, you're further perpetuating the digital divide. Thank you. Good. Anyone else? Okay. As I bring it to the close, next slide. Here are some recommendations that a research study provided. Expanding the adoption of digital consumer tools, e-commerce, digital payments, entertainment, and the like. This was interesting to me because the research showed that in cities and places where they did that, it forced the community, it forced the city to have a better appreciation and gain a better handle on technology. Like, I will never forget the first time I ever ordered something off of Amazon. You couldn't tell me anything else after that. Now I just go order stuff I don't even need. But it's something about being forced to do it. You know, like even now, remember, some people, if you've used the service here in the hotel, remember you had to go to the hotel front desk, you had to check in, you had to get the key, you had to do all of that. Now, if you had the app for the MGM Grand, you could do all of that on your phone. You get your room number and a digital key on your cell phone. Or flying on planes, no more paper boarding passes. Now, if you have an iPhone, it just goes directly to your wallet app on your phone, okay? Then the second recommendation, attracting, training, and retaining digital talent. This is important. And I think that as we move forward in the education arena in the years to come, we're going to see this a lot more now. There will be a heightened component of technology expectations for teachers. You know, I love these new job descriptions where they filter down and drill down all the way to the baseline functions like being able to read email or being able to open up an Outlook or whatever your email capacity is to do it. Fostering digital entrepreneurial ventures. Very important. As we see now, there's been a push in education now to really hone in and teach entrepreneurship. So a good way to do that is digital entrepreneurship ventures. I met a young man who has a tea business. He makes very nice, flavorful, or different, exotic flavored teas. He has no overhead. Why? He does everything out of his house, and it's a digital business. Providing fast, universal, terrestrial, and mobile broadband internet access. Specializing in the export of digital goods, services, and media, and coordinating innovation between universities, businesses, and digital authorities. That will be key. Bringing all of the stakeholders together for the conversation and being able to understand what that looks like. Next slide, please. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, and I've enjoyed speaking to you today. Thank you.